might be live on YouTube. This is our second voyage in the YouTube. Oh, look, yeah, I'm looking over in the YouTube studio, and lo and behold, we are live on YouTube.
Okay, we're live.
We're we're, we're live. This is the best way. This is like the best way to start our show. It's like we're doing like a pre-show, like an opening act, but we're the main act and we're also the opening act, which adds a really fun angle to this content. What I'm gonna do right now, I'm just gonna talk everyone through it. Is I'm gonna post this on Twitter with you tagged, and
Okay.
then that way we can put the link out there. We can get everybody in. So I'm saying we are live now, recapping.
Live in the Learning Center.
Is that where this is? Are we referring to this as Learning Center? I like that.
You know where that's from, right? That's
Yeah.
Club Pro guy.
Oh, that is Club Pro
Yeah.
guy. That's a good shout. That's a good shout. Yeah, we should come up with a name for our remote studio, whatever we're calling this configuration. Join us. Here's the link. Here's Smiley's Twitter handle. And here's mine. And how about that? And tweet. There it is. You want to invite all the good people in?
Yes.
And I'll do the same, and then we'll get this thing started. I think this is a pretty good. I think as far as opening acts go, I think we did a pretty good job thus far.
Yeah. What? Well, sure. Okay.
Okay, we're rocking and rolling now. Now we're officially rocking and rolling. And okay, so let's now dig into the show. So, look, we cannot go any further in the show recapping the Texas Children's Open without the biggest piece of news come out of the weekend, which is that the Smylie Show has now picked in 6 events 3 one and done winners. I mean, and even if you take out Scotty Scheffler from the players, because that it feels like a free bingo square right now. I mean, that is pretty solid stuff when you consider 2 of those were me taking Jake Knapp at the Vedanta and you taking Steven Yeager at the Texas Children's Houston Open. I mean, this is I mean, just your thoughts, Smiley.
Do I have like a hand on the trophy with you with Jake Knapp winning the Mexico Open though? Like, would you have ever picked Jake there if it weren't for just my foresight before, or were you always picking Jake Knapp in Mexico?
I will say, like, if it's a trophy that has handles on both sides, I'd say that your hand's on one side and James Nitty's hand is on the other side, and it's a little bit of like, and then I'm just kind of standing in the middle, just holding the base of the trophy up. Like, thanks, guys. Yeah, no, I never in a million years would I have taken Jake had you all not kind of put me on Jake to start the year. And boy, am I glad you did, because I mean that was a great pick. But I'll say, like, in some senses, the Jaeger pick, at least in my mind, was even further out of left field than that pick, and you nailed it. So congrats to
I
you,
don't
bud.
really know though if when I see Steven Yeager's history this year, he's played great. He's had a fantastic year. Um he just missed the top 50 last year, so he's a player that you know has been near that Aeon Swing 5 all year. Because I remember we were talking about, why isn't he playing, like, I think it was Phoenix or something, because if he just tees it up, he most likely gets into Genesis, and doesn't get into Genesis. It's like, it's just kind of weird. But I think some guys just know where they don't want to play and don't want to play, because Genesis used to be an event where it was a 120 man field, so a lot of the guys have played the event. So I think there's players. Even I'd heard that Chris Kirk was like, why am I here at Genesis? Like, it's not even a place that he ever plays. He doesn't play well there. And middle of the week, he's like, what am I even doing here? But these guys just feel like they got to be at these events that have 700 FedEx Cup points. But yeah, I mean, I got to watch Jaegerbaum all week. It was really impressive how far he's hitting the golf ball. The ball is just missiling off of his driver right now. He's just a super tough player. He's a great iron player. Incredible hands around the green. His performance coach and short game coach Josh Gregory just says he's got some of the best hands on the PGA Tour. And we got to see a little bit of that this week with some of the different shots he got to hit around the greens, the bump and runs, the flop shots. And he was able to navigate it best this week. It was a very fun, fun event just because I didn't know who was going to win. It kind of I forgot at the end. I was like, oh crap, yeah, I picked Jaeger.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was the last couple weeks we had like the Gala and Scheffler coming down the stretch of the players, and like, is this going to happen again for the one and done? Like, we've had some tight one and done races, which
Yeah,
is kept it compelling. But I mean, and I do want to come back to Jaeger. You touched on a couple things there that were part of your preview, really, where you're talking about why this course suited him, what he does well. And you go look at the stats, and it's like, yep, all that aligned. It kind of played out the way you thought it would. But to kind of walk it back a little bit and start with the golf course itself. Because Memorial Park, you and I talked a little bit about, what type of venue is this? How do you feel about it? And it sounds like it kind of grew on you over the course of the week. Is that correct?
it did. It really did. I was concerned a little bit at the beginning. Uh, with Tom Doak, his designs have more of a linksy type feel. This golf course, it was unusual in the fact that there's only like 20 bunkers out there, which is such a small amount. It's not like there's penalty area everywhere. There's not like there's a ton of out of bounds either. So you're thinking to yourself, man, how are these guys going to get tested out here? Because they went to an overseed. In the past, you figured, oh, why has the scores been low out there? It's been because the runoff areas around the greens and it's been Bermuda, so the guys have really struggled chipping around the greens. Now the chipping should be a whole lot easier, and the greens are a little softer. So you're thinking, okay, what's where are these guys going to get tested? And I think seeing through the first 36 holes how the scoring was not that low and being out on the golf course watching, Thursday there wasn't any wind, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday we had a fair bit of wind, but still it was really cool to see how, everybody calls for golf courses to be longer. Okay, this golf course is longer. That checks one box of the complaint department of the PGA Tour fans wanting to see these guys struggle. What else was really good about it? There was an element of risk reward and long holes that blended very nicely on the back nine. So you had the 13th hole, which is played as a drivable par four on Saturday. Sunday it plays as a driver wedge. But we saw all of the last couple groups miss the green. These guys were struggling to get it on this tabletop surface at 13. Then you go play 14, which is a driver 5-iron. And then 15, which is just a 142-yard hole, but also tabletop green that was epic on Saturday and also made for some great drama on Sunday. And then 16, drivable, not drivable. It felt like a drivable par five. It was straight downwind. We were seeing guys drive at 350 plus. Saw Toasty hit wedge into this par five and saw some great eagle looked, but also you have a guy like Steven Yeager misses the fairway and doesn't make birdie. Same with Tony Finau. He doesn't make birdie. And then you get to 17, which was a 3-iron, 8-iron throughout the week. And also you had an opportunity to hit driver on that hole if you wanted to. And it was a driver kind of wedge, give or take. But on Sunday, they moved the tees up and now they make this thing a drivable par four. So you just have this amazing stretch on the back nine that has drama for TV. It has indecision for players. It has opportunity for players to make a push, make a charge, but also it lends itself to the players that aren't you know committing and executing their shots. It lends themselves to making pars and bogeys. So with a really bunched leaderboard, which we had going into the day, I think it was at one point before we came on coverage, 7 guys were tied for the lead. This golf course kind of showed out by the end of the week. For one that I would say that I didn't really have high expectations for heading into the week based on all that I had heard from players coming into Houston. I was very, very impressed with what this golf course was able to offer the players and how it tested guys. And now I'm like all in on Houston and think it should be the week before the Masters.
It's an interesting call, and I kind of I want to dig into one of those holes specifically where you were at on Friday for happy hour, the 15th hole. Quickly, I wanted to say we got the chat that's starting to pop off a little bit here. David Stewart with our first comment, who's fired up for the live recap. David, thanks for joining. Garrett Clemens It's going to be at the Masters on Saturday. Garrett, we hope to see you there. On Substack, on the Albatross newsletter, author named Bill Fields, who wrote a pretty cool little piece about that 15th hole, where he compares it to the postage stamp at Troon. And just looking at, you mentioned on Saturday, there was some carnage on Saturday. Played 120 yards or 121 yards in that third round, had a stroke average of 3.398. Just kind of unpacking that 15th hole a little bit further, both what you saw there on Saturday, the brilliance of a short par three. If you felt like, because I know Scotty makes double there on Saturday and felt like, hey, I hit the shot I wanted to hit. I can't really complain about that too much. But then there's an argument to be made of like, well, that's because you made an aggressive play and there was a safe part of the green you could have hit it to, and it would not have been a birdie look, but it could have been maybe a simpler two putt. Just the brilliance of that hole, and you've touched on a few others there. Wanted to unpack that and also get your thoughts on being out there on Friday, having Wyndham Clark drop by, having Billy Ho drop by for Fridays with Smylie, another fun installment of that.
Yeah, the 15th hole. Let's unpack it a little bit. So I am so in on short par threes. I
Yes,
am so in
love
on
them.
short par threes, and what you're seeing in these modern architects right now is, let's just make it 260. Let's keep on pushing it back and back and back. And I just think from a TV side, I think from a player's perspective, I think they enjoy playing the shorter par threes more, because really proximity wise, you're really only hitting it to a certain area from 260 yards. You're playing a front number. You're trying to give yourself a 30 footer. It's not necessarily fun. It's just a par hole. But a par three like this, where you see Scotty Scheffler hit a perfect golf shot, I'm watching it in the air. I think he's hit it inside a foot and hits, and it spins back. And personally, I think there was a little bit too much uh, inconsistencies of balls rolling off that green, that
Mm,
one like Scotty Scheffler's rolls back in the water, and then a lot of other balls catch. So I would like to see that rough be a little bit more um, aggressive and higher next year, to be able to catch all the golf balls. I think the green is severe enough as it is, to where I don't think there should be a penalty for guys hitting in the water unless you balloon something and you fly it in the water. That would be my only complaint about the hole, is that I wish Scotty would have been chipping for a birdie in that situation, where somebody else in his group got lucky and his ball stays up. So I would say that would probably be my first thing I would change. And if anything, I was actually talking to one of the guys that are really big into this Houston event, asking my opinion on the 15th, and he offered the question of, what if we raise the right side of the green a little bit, just to give
okay.
yourself a little bit of a bailout. And looking at that, kind of going back and taking a peek at that, I don't think that would be a bad decision, just raising the dirt up maybe 2 or 3 feet over there, just to give yourself a bailout for a situation like we saw on Saturday, where the wind is blowing 20, and you have this small finger of sliver of green, and there's nowhere to bail besides 30 feet long, which is such an odd thing to do as a pro, because there's no water besides spinning it back. There's no, you just feel like you have to take the shot on.
Yeah.
And that's very odd from 120 yards. So I'm not sure what your opinion was watching on TV. I know I enjoyed having Billy and Wyndham down there on Friday. We also really love to be a part of the drama. Houston crowd showed up on 15 as well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So for me, it was a great week. I enjoyed the whole, but I'm interested to hear your perspective too.
I love, and I think this, when we talk about this, it takes me back to our discussion about the Genesis and some of the holes that you said, hey, this isn't a great hole from a tournament perspective, and here's
Talking about
why.
four rib.
4 and 10. I mean, and you make fair points there. And four is an interesting one, right? Because four is a long par three, where you're asking them to control their spin with a full iron, where you just can't really do it. There's no real place to miss. So that,
Hmm.
fair critiques there. But you are speaking from the perspective of someone who has played on the PGA Tour, who has won an event on the PGA Tour. I'm speaking from the event of a guy who loves flipping on the TV on a weekend and just seeing carnage and randomness, and the anticipation of those leaders coming down the stretch and standing on that tee and saying literally anything could happen. Like guys could make a birdie and stretch a lead, or you could bring other guys back into play. And I think the 15 specifically, and thinking about Scotty's double he makes there on Saturday is that in an era of TrackMan and fine tuning of stock shots and optimization, things like that, there's something that still feels like a real art in spin control. And I
Mm.
realize that spin optimization and kind of knowing your numbers, that's part of the whole TrackMan process. You can figure that out. But there still is that sort of artist's feel for, okay, I think if I take the club right here and I have this feel that and if I swing at this speed, it's about I have an idea of how much spin I'm taking off it or adding to it or something like that. And that's what I kind of loved watch those guys hit these like little short kind of feel wedges into the screen of like, did I get the spin control right? Maybe I
Mhm.
did. Maybe I have one side. Maybe I can make a birdie. Maybe I'm zipping it off the front of the green and now I'm having to take a drop because it's in the hazard. So I hear what you're saying, and it's probably fairer from a tournament perspective to say, okay, your penalty for getting the spin control wrong is you have an uphill chip, and that's the penalty, and you probably can't make a birdie there
Well,
if
you
you
could
can.
still make a 6,
You
you
could
know?
still true, you know what I mean. So there's still randomness there, but there was a sicko part of me. It was just like, oh, like if he gets it wrong and it gets
Mhm.
and it starts to get rolling and it doesn't catch the right blades of grass, that thing's in the drink. So I loved it, but I think what you're laying out makes sense from fine tuning the tournament golf aspect of that hole. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
where I landed on that.
And and just I think Tom Doak did a really nice job. The longer I was out there, the more I started to like it. But I'll say this about Scotty Scheffler, because watching him out there, his ball striking again was so good. But he got caught a couple times this week playing too aggressively. And a lot of these greens do have that Donald Ross look where they just fall off on the sides. They're built up. And he hit plenty of golf shots that I thought were really good and ended up off the green in situations that were tough up and downs. And that happened on Saturday. He made 8 birdies. He had 2 doubles and a bogey. And I think that's right. I think he had 2 doubles. If he didn't, somebody can
on
correct me.
on
But
this is which day?
Saturday.
Saturday. I know he doubled the last on Friday. He doubled the 15th on
Yeah, yeah, so he had 2
Saturday.
doubles
Yeah,
and a bogey. Yeah,
yeah.
and that day, he played, in my opinion, I didn't I guess 18 was a bit of an anomaly, like, probably just should have been a bogey there for him, but he did almost hole out the bunker shot, so he was almost made 3, ended up making 6, and then 13, no, excuse me, 4, he hit this beautiful low cut 5 iron that ended up missing the green that I thought was gonna be a tap in birdie. So he makes bogey there, and then 15th was, that hole could have easily been a 2 and makes a 5. So very close to, having a 3 or 4 shot lead heading into Sunday instead of being tied for the lead.
Couple of comments I want to shout out here. Hunter Leland was there in person on Friday, was watching at the 15th, said it was so exciting, cheering and drama with every tee shot. That aligns with what you're talking about, how great that Houston crowd was and
They
how
were
this is a
awesome.
great sort of tee up for the Masters. Garrett Clemens compares it. You made the Donald Ross note to Mimosa Hills, which is, of course, here in North Carolina, that, maybe they're kind of similar features. So we appreciate y'all commenting, chiming in. Keep those coming. To kind of work back into the tournament and the result. I think you'll look at this. We'll look back at the results in the first 3 months. This is kind of the last result we're going to have in March, and we'll have the Valero next weekend. But obviously, getting in a major season in the Masters, and many are going to chalk this up as it's another no-name winner. But we're talking about it here. If you watch that finish, this was a thriller. 5 players finished a shot off the winning score. Another 4, 2 shots off the winning score. I know we kind of have had a variation of this discussion so many different times. And I think your response on this has been there are places for both. There are places for marquee names winning events, and there are places for exciting finishes where maybe guys that aren't marquee names win events. Do you have any adds to that thought coming out of this weekend watching Jaeger win? Because it could have been another name. It could have been Scotty making a 5-footer for birdie at the 72nd hole, going into playoff and winning his 3rd event in a row.
I think this all lends itself to the conversation that we've been having about how big do the fields need to be and what's being talked about for shrinking the tour to 100 guys and having that relegation of 30 guys. Well, this event being 144 guys, give or take, you know, to me, having Steven Yeager look Scotty Scheffler in the eye for the last 2 rounds. And here's a guy that Steven Yeager, he is not in the signature events this year until this week. He's qualified for some of them via the Aeon Swing 5, but still, I look at the guys that had an opportunity to win. Alejandro Tosti hasn't been getting into any events. Thomas Dietrich, he's been on the outside looking in as well. Taylor Moore's been in the events. Tony Finau has been the event. So you have this mixed bag. David Skins has not been the events. It was a to me that David versus Goliath kind of storyline that unfolded this week, where you have a bunch of guys that are trying to change their careers for the better, to get into these higher field events, where you got some players that are there secure. Scotty Scheffler, the best in the world, and trying to beat the number one player, I think offered for great TV, because who doesn't want to watch guys that have more on the line to play for trying to beat the best in the world right now, where feel like nobody can go and beat him, and Steven Yeager stared at him for 2 straight days. So I think there is a place for it. I think my opinions changed as we've kind of gone on this throughout the year. I've been kind of buying into 100 guys, 30 spots of relegation. Um, but now I'm starting to open my eyes a little bit more to 140 guys, give or take. I do think that we do have too many spots on tour. I do think the live guys, there needs to be an opportunity for these players to get back, but at what cost? Because now you're talking about these same players like Thomas Dietrich, who didn't go to the live golf tour, that had an opportunity to win this week. Like, these are the players that you're going to be screwing over when the live players come have an opportunity to come back.
Just on that topic, briefly looking at the next 10 swing five, next 10, and it's interesting with the order of these categories. There are a lot of tournament winners in that category that are getting in through the next 10 before they're getting into events on tournament winner status. So it's, there are a lot of usual suspects there. Thomas Dietrich is one of the few in the next 10 who has not won a tournament this year and will qualify for signature events through
Hey, did
that
you hear my
category.
stat on Thomas Dietrich on
I did
yesterday?
not.
I was looking up. I was like, when was the last time Thomas Dietrich won? Because I wanted to see if he won on the European tour. And I looked up the last time he had won. He had actually won something with Thomas Peters, like one of those like World Cup things. I was like, all right, that doesn't count. So I went back to the only professional event he's won, and it was in the Challenge Tour. And he shot 29 under and won by 12 shots. I was like, holy crap.
Wow. This is completely off topic, although it's a great plug for our Spyglass Hill front nine and back nine videos, which you should, once you're done watching this, go watch those now. We had a ton of fun posting those the last 2 weeks, but he lit it up at Spy at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am this year. So as I was kind of editing those projects, I was going back and I was like watching a ton of Thomas Dietrich highlights. I'm like, this guy's got a lot of game, man. Like
Dude, he
he's due for one.
stripes it. He's a flusher. He missed an 8-footer on 10 for birdie. He missed an 8-footer on 16 for eagle. Missed an 8-footer on
It's
17 for
tough.
birdie. So he
He
had
could have
3
easily
putts, and he was
could have won by 2, right?
statistically speaking, he was the best putter in the field, like throughout the week. And then the stats kind of obviously went more towards like 10th by the end of the week because he missed all those putts on the back nine. But talk about a player that him and Toasty, I can imagine they woke up and were just like, what in the world? How did we not stay at 12?
And so Toasty's a guy who moves into that swing five category. This is leading into the RBC Heritage, which will of course be the next signature event where these categories will apply. So Toasty and Billy Horschel both move into the swing five. Right now, it's Bryce Garnett, Eric Barnes, Chandler Phillips, Alejandro Toasty, and Billy Horschel that comprise that category. But yeah, and Toasty's another guy we're going to kind of hit here.
Are we going to
But
talk about the Fridays with Smylie bump right now? Are we gonna talk about this? Like, are we gonna start looking at what these guys are relative to par after coming on Fridays with Smylie? Because we have quite a run going
Well,
at the moment.
here's where I'm at is that it just might be any Smiley media connection in general because here's what we got going right now. We have the pod bump. Jake Knapp, of course, is maybe our golden child in that regard. We
Shane
have the
Lowry.
Shane Lowry. We have Florida Swing, great. We had we have the Fridays with Smiley bump as you've noted, and we also have the one and done bump. It's like just let me tell you, just associate yourself with a Smiley media property in some way, shape, or form, and what's going to happen is you're probably going to go out and play good golf, myself included. By the way, we're not going to do a real swing notes here, but Smiley, it's the game is shaping up just in time. So it just Just being
At some
associated
point,
helps.
I hope down the road we have enough content for us on YouTube of golf stuff that we can just delete our Spyglass film, that we can just delete that tape. But we're very proud of it, but we also wanted to never see the light of day again.
Well, I look forward to getting to the point where we can like put it side by side and be like, look at how bad he used to be at golf, and like look at how far he's come, and it's like, wow, what a heartwarming story. Play some soft music underneath it. Maybe we can
Yep.
talk to Chad Mum about that. Do like a Netflix full swing special on the
Yeah, we need
side
to get
for us.
back out. I got to see this live again, so we need to get something scheduled.
Yeah, well, maybe when we're in Georgia this next week. But okay, this is what to get us back on track in a way. I wanted because we hit a bit on Scheffler, a bit on Jaeger, and there are a couple of names I want to hit. But just to go back to Jaeger, and because you've been just giving out money picks all season long, and you kind of gave us the formula on Jaeger. So what I want to do here is kind of talk about coming into the week, you thought, hey, ton of room for him to drive it. He likes to go at it 110 with the driver, and he's good around the green. So let's look at his stats here. 12th in driving distance this week, 9th in strokes gained around the green, 3rd in strokes gained putting. What I'm curious is kind of playing this forward. Do you like Steven Jaeger at other venues, maybe in the short or long term the rest of this year, where friends of the pod, everyone listening can say, okay, where can I play him next to use the Smylie bump?
Our favorite venue. If he
Oh my!
if he plays Byron Nelson, I love him at TBC Craig Ranch, man.
You realize all roads lead to us doing a YouTube like bit at TPC Craig Ranch, and me being cheery the
Oh
entire time and
gosh.
super happy about playing on Zoysia and just dragging you around the entire round.
I'll tell you what else I like is a potential top 10 play on Steven Yeager at the Masters.
Okay. And why? So do you like his game there? Because he's not. This will be his first start at the Masters.
Yeah,
But do you like him there,
or top
like just
20. Top 20.
top 20, like a short game thing, or I mean, like it's
He's
because
got incredible hands.
yeah.
Incredible hands. Great short game. So he's got one of the things you have to have around there, which is creativity. So he can do that. All right. Well, how far does he get it? Well, he's top 10 in driving distance this year. Okay. So he could drive it far. He's got great hands around the greens. And, his iron game will be the one thing that determines whether it's a top 5 contending type of week or a miscut or a top 25 type of week. So, depending on his iron game, I think that'll be the biggest determining factor of how he plays. And I'm just assuming that he's going to drive it straight. If he doesn't drive it straight and crooked, then it's a different story. But if I see him drive it how he did this past week in Houston, yeah, I look for him to have a fantastic week at Augusta.
And now let's move to the presumptive favorite at Augusta, Scotty Scheffler. I mean, a 5-foot birdie putt away from a playoff and a potential third win in a row. And I think we're past now doing the 5 alarm fire on the putting. It's like he's found something that clearly makes him more comfortable. And I'd say the results a win, and a T2 are pretty convincing. But just kind of breaking down his week, because he had 2 excellent strokes gained putting days. Thursday was 6th in the field, Saturday was 7th in the field, and then he has 2 days that are maybe mediocre to bad. Friday 128th, obviously the double didn't help him there, and Sunday 72nd. What just coming out of the week on Scotty. I mean, this is obviously every time he tees it up, he wants to win, but in some ways, this kind of fit what used to be on his calendar. The match play is like his final Masters tune-up. So where are we at on Scotty heading into the Masters?
I really think heading into the Masters, he should really start changing some things. I
Perfect, because he's going to be your one and done pick. So that's great. Yeah, just change, go back to the blade.
He needs to figure out his game because I
Golly.
just don't like where he's at heading to Augusta. You know what I mean?
I think honestly, it's amazing some of the mistakes he made coming down the stretch yesterday. I had it on while I was working on our Pacific Grove edit, which is dropping this Wednesday. So like and subscribe and get ready for that. But I kind of had it on the background. Every time I looked up, I was like, golly, like that's kind of a loose miss for him. But then he would just come back the next hole and make a birdie. Like I think he made bogey on 15. And then he birdies, do I have that right? 16, 17, and then has the chance at 18 or maybe he birdied one of those 2 holes. I think I made par on the drivable par 4, but
Mhm.
birdied. So it's amazing how sometimes the eye test with Scotty, you're like this can't be contributing to a tournament winning score,
It's
but
our
he's there.
expectations.
He's
It's just our
it's
expectations of him. I think we see just the how he can play this game to perfection. At times he hits shots that you're just like, man, that's right where he was looking, and he hit it right there. He does it all the time, and I would say this week he got on the wrong side of some wind gusts. So I
mm,
think he got a wind gust at 15. I think he had a couple other wind gusts, and on Sunday he had one on the sixth hole that he ended up making bogey, where he had seemed right from the get go like it was going to be his day. It was going to be 3 or 4 shot win, makes bogey at six, and then kind of lets everybody back in a little bit. So I'm going to attribute a little bit to being on the wrong side of a wind gust, and then just Tom Doak's design of if you play aggressively, you also going to be biting the bullet on making your pars. So wind gusts, along with the how playing aggressively and how difficult it can be to get up and down, those would be the two things. And then the third, talking about his putting. Saturday and Sunday, the wind was a bit of a factor
mm.
out there. I wouldn't say it was crazy difficult ball striking wise for Scotty Scheffler, because he's played in wind that strong plenty of times, and probably wind that blew harder than that this year to him. But it does have an effect on an open piece of property with not the most amount of trees, on raised greens that are exposed to wind. That does play a factor in putting. And I think when you look at Saturday and Sunday, some of the gustier winds were on those 2 days. I would just attribute it to that, because to me, he did have a very nice putting week. The stats are going to be a little skewed too, because when you miss a tap in putt on Saturday from 2.5 feet, that bombs your putting total. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to just kill your stats. It's just like getting an out of bounds ball for your off the tee stats. So let's just attribute to those three things. He still had a chance from 5 feet to keep me in Houston and driving to San Antonio, but he missed it, and I got a flight home last night, and now I'm here in Birmingham. So I wasn't mad at all that he missed it.
Thank you for that, Scotty Scheffler. We have a couple of questions in the chat. I want to start by saying, Ruben Rocha, you just joined. He asked, I missed the start of the show. Did they talk Alejandro Tosti? And Ruben, you're in luck, because that is where we are going next. So just hold on that piece really quick. But first, there are just two questions that I wanted to throw to you quickly from the chat. One is on Scotty. Jessica asking, do you think he struggled more with his mindset this week above anything else? And then the second question is, from Silent Biscuit, is, should Texas have an elevated event? And if so, which event and course? And I'd say, just to set that up, it's like the match play was, I guess, in the first iteration of designated events, it was that. So maybe it's going to take some time to figure that out. But yeah, just on Scotty's mindset and on whether or not Texas should have a signature event.
Yeah, Scotty's mindset seemed fine to me. I
Yeah.
think I talked to him walking down one of the fairways, just asking him about, hey, how's your neck? How long did it take you to get comfortable physically after, and mentally too, after winning the Players? And he had just said that he took the entire week off until Friday to touch a club. So he spent a good while kind of getting ready for Houston. Didn't really touch a club doing so. So mindset wise, he looked great to me. I mean, he was hitting it fantastic. Just kind of lost a little bit of just lost a little bit of it down the stretch. Just that it factor. But uh, when it comes to Texas and having an elevated event, I think the biggest problems that these events have had is just the golf courses.
Hmm.
I think Colonial would be the best of the bunch of that group, and I would say that would be the one golf course that you would say would be
I'm
an
excited to
elevate.
see that after Gil Hance's kind of refresh of that. That's
Yeah,
going to
I
be really
I
cool.
think that would be the one that would say, yeah, that should be an elevated event. Um, And Houston, I think, is going to be a fantastic open field event, because I saw everything I needed to see to to love everything about that golf course. So I think that golf course is going to. And really, I'm surprised that Rory didn't play Houston and is playing San Antonio next week, because I think that is a perfect golf course for Rory to play before the Masters. It
It's a
just
great
seemed.
point.
I think more guys are going to start playing in Houston, and that's how it used to be. Houston used to be the event before the Masters, and to me, the way they mowed the fairways back to the guys, it had that green look. just to me, if I were playing in the Masters and trying to get ready, I would be playing Augusta. Excuse me, I'd be playing Houston in comparison to San Antonio.
Kind of love that too, going from a Muni to the Masters. It's a
Yeah.
nice little connection there.
That's nothing against Valero too. It's just
Yeah,
Valero's not anything. It doesn't look anything like Augusta to me.
yeah, yeah. That's a fair point, and one, you talked heading into the week about why you liked a lot of kind of big hitters at this venue. And I think that it is interesting that Rory did not. Maybe it's just the way he kind of got worked his calendar out, but to me, it seems Scotty's doing the same thing. Like, this is his last tune-up, gets a week off to really kind of focus on Masters prep, and then we work into that. Ruben, here we're heading into the toasty section. I'm gonna hit two quick ones on the way in because we have a collection of names we got to hit. First of all, backdoor T2 for my guy Tony Finau to get me 167 sweet one and done points. Which that was it. We were kind of doing some math on the one and done. Kind of interesting. This would have 167 FedEx Cup points rather that had put him between 10th and 11th for his signature event this year. Which is, now I know it's watered down because he's splitting the point total between places 2 and I guess
6.
6.
Yep.
But still, just interesting one to keep an eye on. And then also I gotta say, another great call for Smylie, who liked Aaron Rye coming into the week and cashed a little top 20 bet thanks to that hot tip. So
What was the number on that?
I think it was I threw down 5 units and made 15. I don't know if I'm allowed to say like currency items on this podcast,
Yeah.
but whatever that.
Me
five
either.
5 went 15. That works. You know what I mean? That math works. So let's get to Alejandro Tosti. And look, I'll just tee this up by saying we had an interesting text exchange last night because I don't we don't you know these guys, right? You get to kind of talk to them on a course, get a feel for their personality. So this is what I know about Alejandro Tosti. Is there was some sort of issue last year on the Corn Ferry Tour where he got like disqualified from an event for like treatment of like a staff member or something. So that's the first time he hit my radar from a personality perspective. And then there was the report this week that there was a real kind of icy, frosty exchange about who was away that happened multiple times in a group with Tony Finau. And so we know Tony Finau to be this sort of lovable, friendly giant. You're like, how could you get in an argument with Tony Finau? But then we were kind of talking probably like, no, this guy's delightful. And so I give you the floor here. Talk to me about Alejandro Tosti. Like, sell me on the whole package.
He's the Argentinian cooler. He's the Argentinian microwave, and I'm not sure which one he is yet because he is seriously. He every time I've been around him, he's been so nice to me, and I've seen him be so nice to fans and to kids out there on the golf course. But also, you hear the story about Tony Finau, and you hear the stories from the Corn Ferry Tour last year that I have no idea what happened on the Corn Ferry Tour last year. I just take everybody's word for it, and the fact that there was obviously something that came up. So, with that being said, you're just like, okay, who is this guy? And maybe he's just a player that just runs extremely hot, and then can also be the other way where he's just the nicest guy in the world. And to me, that's what I saw in the interview that I saw after the round as well. He was pretty likable. And but one thing about his game that shocked me is how hard he hits his irons. I mean, just so far, he was hitting a pitching wedge yesterday on 15 from 143 into a 15-mile-an-hour wind. I'm like, what is going on here? And I think he has 5 wedges in the bag. I
Really?
have to double check this, but I was like looking in his caddy's bag, and I swear I saw 5 wedges. So I think
What would
everything
the
is.
loft distribution be on those if you had to guess?
I remember seeing a 54 and a 50, and I'm guessing that he maybe had a pitching wedge that was in the set, but I think he
Got it.
had maybe a shoot.
Would that be like a would you let me ask you this question because I've seen this trend of guys using 62-degree lob wedges. Like I think
I used
Cam
a
Young.
62-degree on tour.
So like is there a world in which you'd find a guy with a 50, 54, 58, 62 distribution?
Maybe that's what he had because I need to go look at it. I was like kind of underneath his bag trying to figure out what they were, and my yardage guy said, "How about Toasty having 5 wedges?" I was like, "Wait, what?" No, because that's just so unusual. You guys are either between 3 or 4,
Right.
but he hits it so far with, and maybe his iron lofts are just really strong, but he was consistently a club longer than Thomas Dietrich and Nick Dunlap, who were very long players, and at times 2 clubs, and it was very confusing. because I kept on doing this to my yardage guy. Like, what do you mean it's a 7 iron? Everybody's hitting 5 irons. It just makes no sense. And then he would just absolutely hammer it. So watching Toasty's game, he's got a ton of cool shots, hits it different trajectories, can work it both ways at times. But I'll say that the one thing he's got to work on is having off-speed shots, because
Mm.
you can't continue to hit it that hard and not have some shots that you can dial it back on. That's, to me, that's the biggest thing he's got to work on, is that part of his game.
Makes a ton of sense. The one thing he does need to work on is his fist pumps when he makes big putts, because
God, it's
God,
awesome.
lot of energy, which honestly I kind of love it. Like,
The
yeah,
Argentinian microwave.
the Argentine microwave, that's a work in
Is it
progress, but I like it.
Argentine? Argentinian?
It
What
is
did I say?
Argentine. It was Argentine.
Argentine. There
Yeah,
you
yeah. I
go.
mean, it's I get confused as well with, I'll say this. This is another aside. I got a lecture from my finance my brother who works in finance this week about betting odds after seeing me handicap us at plus 10,000 to hit the same fairway in our spyglass video. I'm like,
Yeah, what was that?
I'm not a
Just
math guy. I'm not a math guy, dude. He was like, I'd take you two against Jesus Christ himself to hit a fairway at plus 10,000 odds.
But
Like,
he
okay.
this is all is this the same brother that said you shouldn't hit driver on 2 at Spyglass?
This is the same brother that said the only person he's ever seen do that is Tiger Woods, and I'm not him, so
It was 280 yards to the front of the green. Why aren't we not hitting driver there?
I'd say I'd feel a lot more comfortable with that shot with the new driver having the bag,
Okay.
which is, maybe we'll have to go back and just
Yeah.
and do it again. I feel like I'd be right where I need to be, left hand side chipping into it. It would have been. Yeah, go watch the video and find out what happened. That's my tease. One last one as we kind of head out of Houston and into kind of a couple other players we want to hit, and then obviously a Valero picks and preview. But Luke Disler asking in the chat, any insight as to what maybe clicked or changed for Nick Dunlap this week?
I think having open fairways. I think
Mm,
the whole forward to swing, it's heavier rough. It's some of the it's probably the most difficult stretch the guys will play on tour. And he played well at the Cognizant the first couple days, and struggled on the weekend. He got in contention, if you recall, on Friday.
yeah.
And I think that had a lot to do with the rough being down. And Nick's a
Mm,
player that I think struggles with driving the ball at times, just getting the ball in the fairway. If he can just keep it forwards, he's got a great iron game. And his chipping and his driving are the two aspects that when they're on, he can go so low, because he can iron it very well. And he's, I think, probably already a top 20 putter on the PGA tour. Just that's just how good he is on the green. So this golf course, tons of space, no rough. He didn't hit a ton of fairways, but it didn't matter this week. There was no penalty for missing fairways. That's why we saw Nick Dunlap contend, and it wasn't a surprise at all for me to see him get it up near the top of the leaderboard.
makes a ton of sense. So that kind of wraps our recap of the Texas Children's Houston Open. Before we get to Valero, just a couple names want to kind of hit as we sort of peek ahead to the Masters, which, I mean, shoot, we're sitting here a week from today will officially be Masters week, which just feels wild, like how fast time's flying the season. But Victor Hovland, just wanted to sort of check on his status because he has not played since his T62 at the Players. It's not been a great year, and his best finishes was a T19 at the Genesis, and a handful of other kind of middle of the pack ish sort of finishes. And I just am curious where. I mean, this is a guy that you and I both agreed, and it wasn't like a novel thought. Like, a lot of people are saying the same thing of like, this guy wins the Tour Championship last year, it wins 2 FedEx Cup playoff events, and it looks like he plays incredibly well in the Ryder Cup, and it's like this, he's going to be the breakout star this year. He's going to win everything, and really, the guy that's almost filled that role outside of Scotty kind of already being established was Wyndham in some ways.
Mhm.
So on Victor specifically, I mean, what expectations do you have for him at the Masters?
I had such high expectations for Victor this year coming into the year. Then we find out him and Joe Mayo split up, and you and I both for weeks were just like, what in the world? And this is before it came out. You didn't really know what happened. I don't think anybody really does, but I do like what he's working on, but why? I think he felt like there was a lot of manipulation last year, that his good was really good, but his bad was not the expectation or to his expectation, I should say, of his standard of how he hits golf shots. But dude, I was out there all year. I hardly saw him miss shots at all. So in my it just seems like one that was overthought to me because it now what's happened is he's turned his brain on. Now he's working so
Mm.
hard on this swing change, which if you don't really know what he's working on, so Victor Hovland, in his DNA, I think, and he said this on the podcast with us when he came on talking about his golf swing. He was like, "I've always been a guy that takes it back inside, and I get my hands up, and then I go into flexion pretty hard." Throw aim right and get the right shoulder down through it. Now what's happening? He's aiming straighter. He's trying to make the club go back straighter. And so we're already doing two things that are different. So first off, he's the biggest thing that the adjustment that a player is going to have is aim. So if you're a player that has been aiming consistently a little bit right on certain shots, and then now you're starting to look into a different place, and your takeaway's different, your body movement's different, you're changing your motor pattern and the way your eyes look. So you went from being one of the best ball strikers on tour and knowing and having control of your golf ball to now you're having to put so much time and effort and work into ingraining this new golf swing, which is aiming a little bit straighter, taking a little bit more outside on the way back to where he doesn't have to lift his arms quite as much. So he used to go inside, lift his arms up
Mhm. Mhm.
to where he had like tons of rotation early in his backswing to now it's a little bit less rotation early to where then he can keep his depth to where it's not as much hand depth at the top. I should
Mhm.
probably be on this side, but he's getting it more here to where he can keep his depth in the backswing versus early rotation and up to where he always would go this way. Now it's coming in more from the inside is what they're trying to do. So
Mhm.
more out and then more from the inside on the way down. That's great. All sounds fantastic. I
Right.
think that would be if he could get to those positions and that's what he wants to do, then perfect. But I've been through this and I know how difficult it can be for your eyes and your brain on just aiming. I think aiming is the one thing that guys don't factor in when they make changes because they get out there and I'm sure he's doing fantastic on the practice range and in practice rounds of just hitting shots and probably hitting it where he's looking. But it's different when you have a right tucked pin and you have a left pin and you've been used to knowing it's like, all right, where's my safe aim on a right pin? Like I can aim 5 yards right. Now he's aimed what feels like to him probably 15 yards open to a right pin. And you're just like, okay, where's the sweet spot here? You know, I think that to me is where we've seen. I would say his ball striking numbers be a little bit down. It's not terrible, his ball striking numbers, but what it's affected is now he's probably getting short side a little bit more, and he hasn't practiced a ton as much on his short game. So his short game numbers have been not nearly as good as what we saw last year, which is I'd say the main thing that led him to his FedEx Cup trophy, which is he's always been a great putter, but it was how much of an improvement he made in this time of the year last year. Because I started talking about Victor's chipping this time last year of being able to hit these shots that he's never had, and his bunker game's improved. And then he went on just a tear throughout the rest of the year. So to put a bow on Victor Hovland on the Masters, I just don't see how you take 3 weeks off and you got no form coming into it that you're a contender.
Do you think there's anything to be said? And I'm not asking this in a pointed way at all because I think one of the most fascinating parts of the game of golf and the game of professional golf is the relationship surrounding a player and how a guy can be immensely talented, but the voice you hear from your caddy on the bag and the voice you hear from your instructor and maybe even the other members of your team can have a real impact in kind of fine tuning whether you play a lot better or whether you play a lot worse. And everything we hear about Grant Waite is that he's this very technical, very kind of immersive instructor. Like he really kind of wants to dig into it and unpack it, and kind of meshing that with what you've talked about, with Victor Hovland and him coming on the show and things he's thinking about. I just wonder if is that the right type of voice to be talking to Victor Hovland?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I I I'm a believer in what they're working on. I think it's gonna be great if it gets ingrained. But there was just, I think, a cost into making changes without realizing how much work and how much time it might take for it to actually show up in on the golf course. And the thing that he hasn't been able to do is play enough to go out and feel comfortable enough to go test it in competition, because Victor's a player that always feels like he wants to know that he has an opportunity to win. And right now I think he's thinking too much. So he's like, I'm better off being at home practicing and graining all this versus going out there and working on it in competition. Which one's the right thing to do heading into Augusta? Would you rather be playing your way into form, or would you rather be at home thinking you have it and but not really knowing if it's ingrained? I would pick the first one personally. I would think, even if he was posting top 30s or 40th place finishes, but starting to see the shots in competition and starting to get up and down more, I think that's more important, uh, to be able to kind of play your way into shape versus being at home thinking you're in shape. But then you get out and that's when you start to have the blow up rounds that are just like, what? How did I shoot 76?
Yeah. No, all fair points, and it's gonna, it's like, what are you, where are you more comfortable trying to mentally wrap your head around your process? I mean, exactly what you're outlining, but just effectively, like, are you going to get more dejected heading into a major, going out and having blow up
Yeah.
rounds, or are you going to be able to say, wait, we're making progress here, versus
Very
looking at them,
surprised to not see him play Valspar, Houston, or San Antonio. Very, very, very surprised. And
it's
that's
interesting.
alarming. That's, to me, that's, we're raising a flag up.
Well, I mean, would love to see him kind of back in form, but yeah, I just want to kind of put a pin in and see kind of what happens. I mean, who knows? Maybe he shows up at the Masters, he's got it sorted, and he's kind of a dark horse pick where we have some kind of good value on maybe making a play on him because he's going to be undervalued on that board given his form
You
this
think
year.
so, or do you think he'll almost be still overvalued? I don't know where he lies right now on the odds board.
And I can pull up the future odds on the Masters and we can kind
Because
of
his
go
name
through it.
carries a lot of weight
It,
still.
it does. He may end up in that sort of weird middle tier where he actually ends up being kind of properly valued because you have the overvalued part of it where he's won the tour championship last year, he contended at some majors last year, and he has the name, and people are gonna say he should have short odds, and they're gonna look at it and bet him without batting an eye. But then there's a part of it where he hasn't played well this year, and so that kind of pulls him down the board a bit, versus guys who are hotter or more informed, and he kind of ends up in a place where it's about right.
He
So
should have
we'll
been
see.
top 5 on the odds board coming into this week if all things would have held true from last year. I mean, because that, if you would have told me that he was gonna be outside of top 5 of the odds heading 2 weeks before the Masters, I would have said, "Dude, you're crazy."
Well, and I guess that's where my head's at is, if he, whatever he's working on at home, if he shows up with the Victor Hovland game we saw at the end of last year, or whatever the new version of that is, like he's fine tuned and he's hitting the ball like he was then I'd say he'll de facto be undervalued because they're going to kind of knock his odds down a
Yeah.
little bit. So there you have it. So I'd say we were gonna hit on Bryson DeChambeau did an interesting video this last week, just kind of playing a rolled back golf ball. We're kind of long in this show right now to unpack that a little bit, and quite frankly, I feel like that's maybe something for us to do, and maybe more of a lull time, maybe post Masters. There's a great write up on Friday Golf from Will Knights on this video that's worth checking out. But I mean, to me, I thought it was interesting. The point that Will Knights makes is that there are a lot of things that Bryson's saying that are complaints about, the rolled back golf ball. I think he's playing like a 2009 Nike ball that Tiger played and won a bunch of stuff with, and his complaints are exactly why the golf ball is being rolled back. Now, of course, you have to take Will's point of view into consideration, which is he's pro rollback, and Bryson's obviously anti rollback, and we've had discussions on the show about that. But I don't know if you had any quick thoughts on just that process in general, and if you found that intriguing before we kind of move out to the Valero Texas Open preview and our picks.
I don't have an appetite for the rollback right now. I
Yeah,
really don't.
it's fair.
I'm like, it's almost major season, and to me, the rollback conversation is one that's, I'm kind of over that idea. So if you guess you want my opinion, it would be that I'm not for the rollback based on all of all that from what I'm hearing from pros, talking to Shane Lowry, Lucas Glover, these guys that have tested these golf balls, Keegan Bradley have tested it, and then you hear Bryson also saying it. I think what the USGA says, this is what how much the ball is going to go shorter. It's actually double that and more crooked. So I don't know. It seems like the game's going to become much more difficult and more frustrating. But I don't know. I don't. That doesn't seem like the best thing to be doing right now in the game. And we got enough problems as it is.
As we move into the Valero Texas Open, because I'm pulling up the odds right now for us to kind of look through, make our picks and things like that. I just briefly checked the Masters odds, and Victor Hovland still has the fourth shortest odds to win that tournament, along with he has the same odds as Brooks Koepka and Jordan Spieth. Which, Brooks was in that final group last year, and Jordan obviously has a green jacket.
Yeah.
Scotty's the shortest odds at 4-1, Rory 10-1, Rahm 12-1, and then from there you jump to 20-1. That's where Brooks, Vic, and Jordan all are. So the odds makers still believe in
If
him.
there's a Joaquin Neiman Victor Hovland matchup, it's
Play Joaquin.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just an I'm just betting on form right now on guys, and there's 5 or 6 guys that I'm just sitting here looking at on the sheet that are players that are in form this year, and then I see guys like Victor who aren't. I think the majors always, and it's very rare that you see players find form at the big events, but Augusta might be the one of the few places that you might be able to trick your way into it. If you're just pretty decent off the tee, but really the iron game is good, you can kind of trick your way into it a little bit there. But oh gosh, I just think that there's players that I would price a little in a little shorter odds than Victor right now.
As we move, one more on the Masters that I want to get to because there's a comment in the chat from Jack Bergen, who I just would love to say personally, I love Jack Bergen. Jack comments on all of our YouTube videos.
Thank you, Jack.
He's very invested. And I love Jack. Jack, I think you might be the victim of a April Fool's joke. We are doing this on April Fool's. The Golf WRX posted something earlier today that said Taylor Gooch has been invited to the Masters. And Jack now Jack might actually also be trying to April Fools us, which if so,
No, that's an
Jack,
April
hat off
Fool's.
to
Or
you. But
Michael
I
Block
think
also
Jack,
got invited.
yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Jack. That was an April Fool's joke. Or here's what I'd actually be here for. If Augusta National extended Taylor Gooch a Masters invite on April Fools, that'd be the one of the greatest plays of all time. So here's to hoping that's true. Let's move on to Valero. First, I want to run you through some tournament favorites, and then we'll make our one and done picks. We're in this weird middle ground of like we did handicap management last week on Sunday nights. We didn't have the odds yet. We've done before. We need actually. I'll put this out there to the listeners and the viewers. We need a name for our DFS segment where we kind of build that lineup, but we don't have those prices yet, so we can't do the DFS segment. So what I'm going to do is just kind of run you through the board right now, some names, and see if there's anyone you like. And this is a pretty solid field this week for the Valero Texas
Yeah, it's
Open. A lot of
awesome.
so Rory's the favorite, 8-1. From there, then Ludwig has the second shortest odds at 12-1. Then you have Jordan Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama, and Max Homa at 18-1. Colin Morikawa at 20-1. Corey Connors at 22-1. Matt Fitzpatrick at 25-1. And Tommy Fleetwood at 28-1. I can go further down with some notables past that, but that's kind of like your big names, everyone that's shorter than 30-1. And I wonder if any of those names kind of pops for you off the top, and then we can kind of go further.
Yeah, 3 names. Am I picking first this week?
I'm picking first this week because you're picking first for the
Okay.
Masters, and I've
Well,
already.
why don't we do our one and done picks, and I'll tell
You
you
want
who
to
I
do them?
like,
Okay, great.
because
I
I
love
don't
that.
want to give you I don't want you to
Oh,
steal one of my picks
I
here.
like that. I like that. So okay, so that really puts me on the spot here. Who do I like at the Valero Texas Open? Man alive, I you know
Everybody's
what?
on the edge of their seat right now because right now we can't miss.
I know this is a big one, and I usually like to kind of uh, mine your head for some intel before I make a pick because that usually goes well for me. I am going to go with. I kind of want to go a little further down the board. Can I like beta test some names with you, or
No,
cannot do that? All right, that's fair. Because okay,
because I'm
I'm
behind, man. I got it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
got to
yeah.
play
No,
catch up
that's
here.
fair. That's fair. I mean,
I can't be giving you anything.
well, here's my calculus. Let me just kind of talk, because this gives some people some different options. Like Ludwig, second shortest odds on the board. I think Ludwig's going to play well in majors this year for sure, but I don't know if he's going to win a major this year. And so part of me wants to kind of use him in a strong, event with a strong field, but a chance where he could pick one off and get a win,
Yep.
knowing that like, hey, I probably won't take him in any of the majors, and you know signature events have more FedEx Cup points, so you could use him there. But this might be one where I can use him and get it done. But I'm also looking at guys like, going a little further down, like Akshay Bhatia played well this last week,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to find a place to use Akshay at some point.
I'm with you there.
I'm not sure on the course fit, so I'm sure you're not. But even like Aaron Rye, like is in good form right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I'm gonna do here is I think I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna save Ludwig. I'm gonna go with Akshay this week.
Okay, I like the pick. It's
Okay,
a good pick.
that's good. That's good. If you like it, then that makes me happy because
Yeah. I'm gonna take Corey Connors. It's a no-brainer.
love that. Love that. He's won here before, correct?
This is the
This actually got him into the
just like
Masters.
how this event was the Zach Johnson Invitational, how it's been the Charlie Hoffman challenge. It's now it is the Corey Connors Invitational or challenge, or whatever you want to call it. Um, this guy just plays
Loves
good
this
here
track.
every single year now, and it's a golf course that you have to hit the fairway first. There is trouble off the fairways on this golf course. You kind of have to plot your way around it a little bit. Um, you have a lot of iron shots, I would say, in that 9-8 iron range. If you hit the fairway. So a lot of shots from that 150 to 170, I'd say. So Corey's always a good driver of the ball. He plays good here every year. He flights it lower. If it's windy, gusty days, he's not as susceptible as other guys that hit it up in the air. So you don't have to worry about that round that gets away from him. He, for the most part, finds a way to shoot, 2 to 4 under every day, even on his bad days. So love Corey Connors here. The other names I really liked, I like Jordan a lot at this golf course. He's won here. I think it's a good litmus test to see exactly where he is as far as form. Typically plays well in Texas as it is, but didn't he had a very sketchy Florida. I think
Mm-hmm.
he came out really promising at the beginning of the year, getting in contention at the Century, but also having a nice week in Riv until he signed an incorrect scorecard, ends up getting sick, and then just never really found his feet underneath him, which I think is normal on the Florida swing. You could be just a little off and find yourself down the leaderboards. So I expect Jordan Spieth to have a really good week as well. I honestly considered burning that pick right here, but I'm going to save Jordan down the road because I like Corey Connors that much. But the other name too is Matthew Fitzpatrick. I think
Mm.
Fitzpatrick coming off a really nice week. Uh, it was in where was that?
Valspar? Did
It
he
was
play
Bay
Valspar?
Hill, I think. I think it
Yeah,
was Bay Hill.
where he played well.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me
yeah,
do
let me
that.
check real quick.
I'll search that while you.
Yeah, just to finish up with him. Yeah, it was players. Played really well with the
Yeah.
players. And no, he missed the cut. That's what it was. He missed the cut at Bay Hill and goes and has a really nice players championship. And I think that was finally you started to see the ball striking come back for him.
Mm.
And I would compare him to Corey Connors and how he hits shots off the tee. I think if he drives it really well, I think Fitzpatrick could easily get the job done. Just like he did at Hilton Head the year before. He can play well on golf courses that you have to find the fairway on and then pick it apart from there. So those would be the three guys that I would start with. And then I also am with you. I really like Akshay, I like Aaron Rye. I'm sure there's some other guys I probably need to take a peek at, but um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if you run a
I'm a
little
little
further
worried about
down,
Ludwig. I think Ludwig
yeah.
I think he's a little bit more of a boomer bust candidate at this event. I think he could win by 5 shots, but I wouldn't expect him to finish um I say bust. I mean, I just worry about the one round where he just gets a little off and makes some big numbers. But if he's able to keep it in play and not struggle driving, which has been probably his biggest weakness this year, has been driving the ball. Where last year he drove it down a hallway. Um, he could easily win this tournament by 5. So
Let me throw a few just names. You can just, thumbs up or thumbs down here that have had some kind of. So Billy Horschel, 35-1, has had some recent form.
like Billy, really like Billy this week.
Okay, so there's one. And then, man, at the 55-1 number, which is longer than Akshay Bhatia is 50-1 alongside Christian Bezadenhout and Keith Mitchell. But 55-1, there's a Texas guy in Bo Hostler.
I like Bo Hostler. Bo is a name I was gonna say. That's so funny.
And then like Tom Kim, do you give him any credit for living in the? I mean, I know this is San Antonio, but he lives in Dallas. Like, is he not enough form for you right now to like him?
It's a perfect course fit for Tom Kim, and I think we haven't really seen Tom Kim get off to the start we were expecting to this year. Just getting with Paul Tesori, and then gets off to a terrible start at the Players' withdrawals. I think it was from illness. So I
Yes.
was pretty high on Tom Kim's chances at the Players to get in contention there as well. Watching his preparation, it seemed like he wasn't working on golf swing. He was kind of competing, working on like hitting certain numbers, and just didn't look like a guy that was thinking too much about his game. So that's a great call. Tom Kim's one that's probably down the board a bit as well.
And,
That
and,
would
and
that would have tons of value.
And then going like way down the list for people trying to kind of plug the back end of their DFS lineup in, a guy that was like briefly leading this last week. How about like Davis Riley at 90-1? I know this is a guy like we saw his talent and then he's kind of dropped back and now it's like he's kind of in the progress of finding form. I'm not saying a
He
pick to win the
changed back to his
tournament.
old swing coach, Jeff Smith.
Okay.
So I'm not willing to make a to to tell you that Davis Riley's gonna turn around back-to-back weeks, because that golf course last week was really open. This one's a little bit more claustrophobic, and I personally would stay away. But I do
Okay.
think that Davis Riley's on the right track. He's got the game to do it, but just the results of what we've seen from him, I don't expect to see anything crazy. Is it another one too? Is Siwoo Kim? Is he playing, or like
Siwoo Kim.
an SH Kim if he's playing? I kind of like those two guys too.
SH Kim is 180-1. So that's
Yeah,
great
like
value if you want to play
that's the
him.
type of name I like.
How about
Um,
both two guys at 130-1? Alejandro Tosi, who we discussed. That's the long odds. And then
yeah,
also,
I
how
like the
about
microwave.
Bud Cauley? Bud Cauley at 131. I mean, he's had some kind of up and down year, but he's showed some form in the starts he's gotten.
Yeah, I'm much probably more on Toasty right now
Okay.
than I am on Bud if we're picking between the two. And yeah, I think you can kind of build a lineup based on all that
Yeah.
intel. Like I would 100% plug and play Toasty down. If he's one of the last guys you get to plug in, that would be like an
131's long odds. Yeah.
auto press on Toasty.
I love that. Well, there you have it. That's a lot of names to throw at you. You should be able to cobble something together there. At the very least, take a look at those one and done picks because that's where we've been our hottest this season. So that's kind of the show. Unless there are last thoughts, I will say this: stay tuned this week. We this is going to fall on deaf ears because all of you who are clamoring for the podcast to go back and Spotify feed and the Apple Podcast feed, or you're probably not watching this here on YouTube, and that's a shame, but that's okay. We'll get you over here at some point. But we will be back in those podcast feeds very, very soon. If that's your preferred way of consuming the show.
It is for me.
Yeah, I'll say the same. Yeah,
I like listening to us on Spotify every now and then. I'll just make sure that we don't sound like a bunch of idiots. So I'll plug it on when I'm working out.
I'm the same. I've been starting to kind of like throw it on the TV when I work out at the same time, just because that's the YouTube format. But we'll be back. We'll be back there very soon. Stay tuned this week. We have a big announcement to make that we are very excited about. So just bear with us. Just be patient for a few more days here, and then you'll have those podcasts back. And nothing changes. Just stay subscribed to those same feeds. We will be right back there. But we're just kind of waiting to make a big announcement that we're both really excited about. So, yeah, with that said, Smylie, I think we can wrap it up for this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing really add. I'm leaving for San Antonio tomorrow.
In the booth this week, right?
Yeah,
Excited about that.
which
Yeah.
hasn't been announced yet. So Charlie's got the announcement.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I'm hoping nobody from NBC or Golf Channel's watching at this point in the show. My fault.
If
My apologies.
I kind of wanted to see Charlie turn into a cherry tomato, and here it is.
I tell you what, man, I've been going through it this week. We had a pollen bomb go off in North Carolina on Friday, and I've just been just fighting an uphill battle all weekend long. So
It ain't a big
whether my
deal. I
face
mean,
is red from shame or from the amounts of pollen I've ingested, it's red. It is definitely red.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it ain't a big deal. I'm sure they're gonna announce it either today or tomorrow or something. So,
Well, hey, look, if you were here and you were watching the live stream, you just got a big scoop. So congrats to you for being here. So we appreciate all of you watching. And yes, we'll be back. We will really, the next thing for you to tune into is Wednesday for our Pacific Grove video, which is delightful. Just finished editing that this week, and it is so much fun watching us play in the 60-mile-per-hour winds that the pros were not allowed to play in for the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So do not miss that Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll put out a premiere link on the day of that show. And then we'll come back. We've got some excited stuff for Masters weekend. So just stay tuned on that front, and stay tuned, of course, for our big announcement this week. We will talk to you very soon.